Hello, my Dungeons and Dragons friends, newcomers and veterans. Welcome to the first episode of the Roundtable Talk. My name is Zach. I am the co-creator of the Horny Harpy and Company podcast channel. If you're wondering what's going on here, well, me and the other creator of the podcast, Andrew, were in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that lasted for 4 years and ended in June of this year. And we had so much fun playing through it, we wanted to immortalize it in some way, so we started recording the sessions. Now, we only recorded around a year of sessions from the campaign, but after a few months of figuring out how we want to bring this campaign to the world, we finally decided on releasing a pilot episode, which is a non-canon interaction that one of our players and the DM had at the end of a session. It was a very cinematic moment, and we saw a lot of potential in it. After a lot of editing, we published what is the first episode, the one you just watched, called The Call to Tempest. This next episode is a discussion we had with the actual player who was talking in the episode, where we talked more about his character and certain aspects of his story. We plan on doing a lot with this podcast, and I'm so glad you could be part of it. Now, enough from me, and let's get into it. Welcome to what we are calling the Roundtable Talk, the kind of BTS or talk about the previous episode, which is going to be basically the even episode of every segment that we have of this. I'm Zachary. I play Ray Jean, our ranger in this campaign. I think we have 6 players in the party. Exactly. 6-player party. Today we have, as I said, Aiden. He plays our paladin in the campaign in our party. But I mean, just to start off with that, Aiden, also thank you for being able to do this too.
Glad to be here.
Tell us a little bit about who Boi is for the party, at least.
Right. So when we started the campaign, obviously, I'm sure you remember, it was a joke.
Yes.
We started this as a complete joke.
Right.
So Boi, B-O-I, with an accent.
With an accent.
It's very important.
Oh, yeah.
Hafnut.
Hafnut.
Funny. Haha jokes.
But it was Boi Hafnut the 69th as well.
That was his, that was part of it. That kind of got dropped off later.
Right, yeah. Which,
it's fine.
To the same point, when we all started, Andrew was Florida Man, which he still is, but he's lived up to it, and it's a proud name now. And then Ray was named Raging Diabetes.
Yeah, but full family name.
Yeah, full family name. The Diabetes family.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's what I liked about it too, because we kind of, after when we first started, we were like, okay.
Now we got something here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We were having fun.
Right.
We were still had fun, but we realized, okay, we can do something with this.
Exactly. So Boi, the character, is the paladin of the party. He plays he's a very lead role when it comes to a lot of the social interactions that the party conducts itself with. He has a supportive role as well amongst the party. That's just how the class works. Mm-hmm. But Boi, outside of the mechanics, also, I think, kind of served as the moral compass of the party in a lot of situations, especially when some more morally gray situations would come up, or when a character like Azrath joined the campaign. Yeah. There's some conflict to be had there. Yeah. It was fun conflict. But Boi, the actual character, is a half-elf from the country of Glywood, born into the Hafnut family, one of the most noble families of the country. And he grew up in a life of pretty lavish standing.
Yeah. So he was basically, to put it into, I don't know, I feel bad for saying like trope, but in the normal kind of, if we're thinking about Lord of the Rings kind of standard, he was the elven part of the party. He not like a hunter like Legolas was, but he was that half elven, the elven kind of genre.
Kind of brought that flavor to the party.
He brought that.
Kind of filled that elven role of the party.
Right, he kind of, Boi kind of filled the elven role with also, Azrath joining, and then in the episode, the previous episode 1, The Call to Tempest, we get a little bit of, we get very few characters that are introduced.
Right.
So we have Boi, of course, our main paladin Boi, And then we have Tempest. And then we have Evandra. Now, Evandra, tell us a little bit about who Evandra is, specifically to Boi.
Right. So when Boi, in his story, he eventually had to flee his country.
Yeah.
Because his father was overthrown from his standing in the government by Boi's uncle, his brother. And when Boi had to, when that all happened, Boi also had to flee the country for fear of his own life.
Yeah.
And through that, he kind of he looked for a way that he could potentially, find justice for his father, reclaim his place amongst his people. And how he was able to kind of find that was through servitude to Evandra.
Yeah.
And it's later revealed later on that there's a lot more to Boi finding Evandra than just that.
Right. So Evandra, being in D&D lore at least, she is known as the Changebringer, and she's the...
Yes.
I think she's the god of... Is it change?
Luck. Change.
That's what it is. The god of luck.
So,
that's what I remember.
So Boi, thinking maybe through venerating this deity that he can potentially bring some change to his own situation. So that's kind of the story there with how Boi came to find Evandra and swore an oath to bring change to his family and to his situation that he's found himself in, and therefore he became a paladin.
Right. And I also find it real funny as well, because a lot of times, and I don't know what it is, I don't understand what it is with specifically paladins, and if there's some sort of curse or something like that upon paladins, and some of you may know this too. I know, and I know it's not just you, because I have another friend who was a paladin as well, and I played in the campaign, and he had problems with rolls. And I think I find it hilarious.
Moments.
Yeah,
yes.
But I find it hilarious that you...
It's very funny.
You worship Evandra, the goddess of luck.
Didn't have much sometimes.
Yeah, right. You're just...
No, when it came to the critical rolls, the things I have, insane mods in, like plus 9, 10s, 11s to do stuff, I rolled 3, a 4.
Right.
So the mods wouldn't really matter.
Yeah.
But, hey, that's the literal roll of the dice.
Play the game.
Exactly.
That's just the DM in the sky, balancing out your OP-ness.
Exactly. Boi is pretty OP.
He is pretty OP. I mean, look, getting to, we've just ended this campaign where this is the reason that we're doing this, kind of. We want to tell the tale of this campaign because we think it deserves, a place in this world for other people to find out about. In the end, we
were all pretty OP.
We get OP.
Yeah.
We get OP.
It's pretty good.
But nonetheless, let's go on to the other side of Boi, because you could say... I don't think it's the right way to kind of describe Tempest, but he does seem like his patron. Now, eventually, of course, I'm not giving too much away, but in a sort of way, he does become a patron to Boi, but we see him battle with separate gods inside his own mind.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about Tempest and his relationship with Boi.
Right. So Tempest, the god of war and destruction, he took a vested interest in Boi for several reasons. I mean, for one, Boi is one of the most powerful, at that point in the campaign, one of the most powerful magic users on the planet. Something to be said about that, obviously, with a deity that's willing to influence the world in a way like Tempest is with his Red Order Knights and that whole thing. Yeah. It's kind of... He took a vested interest in Boi because he saw a weakness in Boi. Through several events that occur throughout the campaign, Boi has to kind of battle with this inward fight of justice and vengeance and doing what's right for right's sake and doing what's right for personal sake or personal gain or getting back at someone, which is something I think that is very real and something that a lot of people do have to deal with, which is one of the things I really like about Boi as a character. So through that weakness that Boi has, Tempest is able to get a foothold. Right. And with that, I mean, it creates some problems for Boi, for sure, but it also gives him some benefits, as is seen in the campaign that several times Boi having access to Tempest's power makes him even just a little bit stronger, you know. But it comes at a cost because Boi can't control himself.
And that's what playing my character, who is obviously very, chaotic in nature, and that's kind of where I wanted his alignment to stray to. It's really fun watching someone in our party who has always been very morally pure in a sort of way, and he, Boi's always seen the right way and the good way, and then, comes in the opposite of what I think we all expected and what Boi needed. But I think a few days ago I was talking to Andrew about this too, and it's real. How I saw it was that Tempest was when he saw Boi, he saw somebody who was very powerful, of course, like you said, but he could tap into him.
Exactly.
Because, like everyone who is desperate in war, they want an easy way to be able to win that war. And that really goes into key with, the episode and the whole discussion that Boi and Tempest have.
Right.
Because that's in those moments, with Moloch, the Demon King, right in front of us. That's what Boi is calling to Tempest for.
Exactly.
Because
it would have been, through events that happened outside of the campaign, thankfully it wasn't necessary.
Right, yeah.
But in that moment, the only chance the party would have had at not even winning, but just escaping the fight would have been for Boi to give in to Tempest, accept his power fully, but also essentially trade away his soul at the cost of it in order to save the party. Potentially, Boi still even dying, having to stay behind and hold off Moloch while everyone else escaped. That was going through my head at the time.
Yeah.
It's like, well, Boi's gonna die. Here we go. Thankfully, it didn't happen. But there were several points in the campaign where that was a viable option.
Yeah.
And that was something that Boi really had to actually consider. Was like, am I going to be strong enough to do this without, help from Tempest?
Right.
And
it was a discussion also that, way before this even happened, in the city of Brass, when we were fighting Moloch and in the arena and stuff, that you had came to the party as out of game and been like, hey, I have kind of a bargaining chip that I can use,
right,
which is this basically this conversation that you're having with Tempest, that you can say, you need me,
right,
and you have to do what I say, or if I die, or if Boi dies, then you have no other choice,
right,
and you have no other opportunity. And that's what I love about this conversation too, because even after this happened, you were before, you were like, I've got this. This is the best idea that could happen. And then Jacob, our DM at the time, had
the most interesting thing to me about Boi and Tempest's relationship is just the fact that Tempest ended up sticking around and being relevant for the entirety of the campaign after he was introduced to Boi, because there's, again, events that happen that may have Boi have this weakness that Tempest exploits, and it stays relevant for the rest of the campaign, and it's something that Boi has to deal with, and it's something that I actually kind of leaned into even during leveling up,
right?
Because Boi actually ended up taking a couple of levels of Warlock along the way to have a Hexblade, Paladin, Warlock. Super OP, but I had a good reason to do it,
Right.
And the thing about it was that it was kind of like a unintentional thing on Boi's part. It was almost like he was forced to kind of do it. It was like this tinge of Tempest that he had on him was stuck to him, and whether he liked it or not. And again, that's something that gets resolved later on outside of the scope of the campaign, but through the end of the story, at least, it still stays very relevant.
Yeah. So going on to talk a bit about this actual episode that they have this discussion.
Right.
So there's one point when Tempest, at the beginning, when Boi calls to Tempest and says, I need your help. Tempest comes out and there's a piece of paper or a parchment.
Contract.
A contract. So tell us a little bit while not going into, spoilers about like where that goes or anything like that.
Right.
Now, because of course, as we kind of said a little bit about it, or Aiden said something about it, but this episode, this little discussion is technically not true. But
technically not canon.
Yes, it's technically not canon. But in another world where Boi did have to say, have this conversation with him, where we made a terrible decision as a party, and thankfully to our savior Jacob, our DM, he was able to say, let's retcon.
We all agreed to retcon it.
Yeah.
For the sake of the game.
For the sake of the game, which was a great decision. But tell us a little bit about this contract,
right?
Because I feel like he never brought up something like this before, where like a parchment came out, with the blood or the bloodied hand and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But there definitely was times when a contract was kind of presented to Boi.
So essentially, Tempest wanted Boi's soul. He wanted control over him, and if in order for Boi to actually get the power that he had maybe needed at that time, he would have had to trade over his soul. Mm-hmm. And of course, even though that situation was retconned, Boi refused.
Right. Because
even Boi realized that with everything going on, and due to some revelations that he got shortly before or shortly after, actually, he realized, it's too important. His Boi's life, like not even to himself, but to the rest of the party and to the rest of the world, really, he was too important to risk making such an error, or at least giving Tempest such a foothold in the world.
And also, to kind of go on to the point of this discussion, there's a point where Tempest basically says, hey, it's on the table, take it or leave it, but this is the decision right now. And he says, make your choice. And then we get echoes in the recording of the first episode. We see some other people and
members of the party.
These echoes,
of things they've said.
Of the members of the party. So do you think that...
Because this was an issue that Boi was very open with the party about.
Yeah.
And because it was something that came up several times and did put members of the party at risk at times. Because when Boi did give in to those rage-filled desires and things like that, he kind of lost control of himself.
Right, because there were many times when things would happen, especially a very pivotal point involving his family and involving the elven people of Glawood, where he lost his cool. So do you think that, was there ever a time in those episodes that he had where his relationship with the party kind of faltered?
I think potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that anyone in the party ever really, as far as characters goes, stopped trusting Boi.
Right.
I think it was just a matter of this is an issue now that we have to be aware of, and something that may happen. Because at the end of the day, 99% of the time, Boi was in control. He did what needed to be done.
Yeah.
But that 1%, things could get really bad really quick.
Yeah.
Thankfully, never really did.
But
due to some fast acting by our cleric most of the time.
That's what I really liked about Boi too, is that he would always... there were times when he lost his cool, and obviously we had people in our party, especially my character and Azarath, one of the echoes of the party, who kind of kept their secrets and didn't really tell the whole truth. But there was never really a point when Boi had that, because even when he did struggle with these trials, he would tell the truth and he would be honest with his party and with his friend. But do you think that's because of Avandra, or do you think that's because of something else?
I think that's just how I envisioned Boi being as a person, being as genuine as he could be, as honest and truthful as he could be. Yeah. And, he started out very naive. Right. In reality, he was naive. He saw the world through a very black and white lens. So, like when Azarath joined the party, a necromancy bad. Right. Through those first couple of sessions, it was something that Boi had to deal with. Azarath was seeing him for the person, not for the art that he practiced, and seeing also that the art that he practiced can be useful and is not inherently bad. And that, I think, is one of my favorite moments of the campaign. Is there's a point where Azarath and Boi are talking, and Azarath is worried that the things that he's done in life are going to set him apart from his family after death, and that he won't be able to see them because he's not going to go to the good place, after he dies. And Boi kind of reassures him, and Azarath says something to the extent of, well, whether or not what I do is good or not, that remains yet to be seen.
Right.
And Boi responds, well, I've seen enough. Yeah. And that was the kind of moment to me.
Great quote.
That's a good quote moment,
so
right? Good. And that was the kind of moment to me where Boi and Azarath kind of saw each other eye to eye, and really formed that relationship between the righteous holy man and the, wise scholar. They kind of saw the value in each other and could get along after that pretty much.
That's probably one of my favorite parts about, especially there too.
The dynamic.
Yeah, the dynamic of, having this one person who is very collected, very noble, and very honorable, and then you have somebody who is, almost the opposite. But even still, both of you, I feel like both of you definitely were, we said this a lot, or at least I said this because I loved it, but y'all were definitely like the mom and dad
of the group.
Yeah, the mom and the dad of the group. Like y'all took care of, us when we were doing our stuff. But
I mean, y'all had a beach episode while
the beach
Boi and Azarath went to the library.
It's so good. It's so
the kids fooling around while the parents taking care of business.
That's gonna have to be its own episode.
Beach episode.
We're gonna get all the boys of the party and just have a whole episode on the pod where we just talk about the beach episode. Such a great episode.
Really good.
But yeah, I think that's all we're gonna have time for today. Thank you, Boi the 69.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Hafnut. Thank you, Aiden. And also thank you for, coming in. Listeners, for listening to us and being able to be here and be with us on the start of this journey. As most party members do, we got to have long rest. So we're going to get out of here. Be sure to, leave a like, leave a follow on the Spotify and on the YouTube. And we should have some links to, all our social medias and websites and of what. So thank you. And we'll see you next time. It's beautiful.
All right.
I love it.